EP48, Chapter 26, Mr. Bear's 48th Birthday. Hello, social media mites and mavens. James Homan here. Now, please understand that Harold and I were considered by our friends to be what they call culture vultures. And as such, we built our lives around the many artistic advantages that living in New York City afforded us. This email update will celebrate the many activities that accompanies Harold's 48th birthday. Indeed, it was a celebration of the many generous friends throughout his life. Once it was discovered that wheelchair patients could purchase 2 seats in prime locations for reduced rates at Broadway shows, nothing would stop us. I shamefully admit that I even considered renting the wheelchair to friends who were fully functional to obtain reduced prices. However, I was discouraged and ultimately didn't. This second protocol that he's now receiving did not involve as many trips to and from doctors' offices and hospitals, giving us more time together. Obviously, with Harold's increased disabilities, he grew very much more reliant on my assistance. But we always worked well together, and this period of almost hyperactivity became not only a testing, but also a confirmation of our ability to collaborate. Shortly after Mama June's return from Florida, there came the time to seriously consider hospice services. By law, the attending physician had to confirm his prognosis of less than 6 weeks. It was time for me to stop working full-time and concentrate on where I was meant to be. My boss at Ogilvy One Worldwide, Wendy Riches, could not have been more understanding or supportive. Dear friends, Harold's 48th birthday was as wonderful as it could have possibly been. Warm wishes, funny cards, an astonishing amount of chocolate, abundant gifts, visits, and phone calls added immense joy to his special day, a joy that has continued throughout 2 weekends. It was a celebration of life and great theater. Thanks to Kenny Morris, Harold and I attended the current revival of Charles Ludlam's Irma Vep on Thursday, February 4th. On his birthday, February 5th, we applauded the all-balancing program at New York City Ballet with Divertimento No. 15, music by Mozart, Episodes, music by Webern, and Vienna Waltzes, music by Johann Sebastian Strauss. We had purchased tickets with Michael Plunkett and Mary Beth O'Keefe to see Natasha Richardson in the revival of Cabaret that next Saturday, which had to be canceled due to Harold's seizure activity. So on that evening of February 6th, Michael and Mary Beth had a small dinner party to honor Harold's birthday. My youngest brother, Jeff, and his wife, Carol, plus their 3 children from Kenosha, Wisconsin, arrived for the occasion. That meant a great deal to both of us. Earlier that Saturday, I wheeled Harold across Central Park to the Frick, his favorite museum, which he always relishes. We gazed in awe at the Vermeers, the Whistlers, the Turners, the Franz Halls, and a special exhibit of François Hébert Douai's portrait of Madame du Pompadour, on loan from the British Museum. Although chilly, it was gloriously sunny on our way across the park, and we joyfully endured a squall of snow flurries on our way back home. That Sunday, Aunt Billy, Uncle Sam, and cousins Ann and Bob brought in a brisket dinner from my favorite restaurant in Hoboken, their home. We enjoyed the leftovers through the following Wednesday. For Harold's birthday weekend, I took him to see You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown that Friday, and Zoe Wanamaker in the revival of Elektra on Saturday night. while on Sunday we attended Forbidden Broadway Cleans Up Its Act. We had tickets to the matinee of Bernadette Peters in the revival of Annie Get Your Gun on Monday, but Harold was too exhausted at that point and opted to rest at home. The 2 weekends were everything he wanted it to be, and he thoroughly enjoyed himself. As another birthday gift, our friends Jeffrey and Mark, who lived in our building, secured wheelchair seating for the Metropolitan Opera's current production of Schoenberg's Moses und Aaron, which Harold had specifically asked to see. He was thrilled. What a dazzling physical production it was. If only I'd been well rested enough to absorb any of it. Harold frequently talks about a new dimension in which he listens to, sees, or enjoys the arts. It is with the, quote, overlay of possibly, as he calls it. Would it, quote, possibly, unquote, be the last time he enjoys hearing a piece of music, seeing a work of art, or visiting with friends? Or would he possibly enjoy these beloved pastimes several more times? If only we could all adopt a bit of that overlay, would not all our lives be considerably fuller? He had remained incredibly strong of heart during these trying times, and I will always marvel at his attempt to maintain his standards. His most recent blood tests indicate a platelet count of 75. Because it wasn't over 100, his second round of temozolomide chemotherapy that was to have begun this morning was postponed until that count increases. With yet another blood test scheduled for next Monday, we planned nothing for the weekend. Harold will be resting, enjoying his favorite music, watching videos, and finishing his last book, Memoirs of a Geisha. There had been minor, but all too frequent activity on the right side of Harold's face, a twitching. While he's not been running any temperature, he continues to be fatigued, and his ability to communicate verbally continues to decrease, even though his physical therapists visit every Tuesday and Thursday to put him through his paces. He nods off during friends' visits, and it takes an obvious effort for him to say anything, both signs of obvious decline. His doctors, Allen and Molofsky, two of Dr. Seifert's colleagues at Beth Israel North, met with us because Dr. Seifert's on vacation. Harold wasn't able to readily converse with them, and they noticed the twitching on the right side of his face. They had diagnosed a, quote, epilepsy partiality continuance, unquote, that they will be discussing upon Dr. Seifert's return. Topamax was introduced last week as a third anticonvulsant, and his other medications are now being adjusted. Then the next set of MRIs are scheduled for March 8th at Beth Israel North. Hopefully, he will receive a complete second round of temozolomide at that time. However, at this point, we're not certain that will be possible. Harold's mother, Mama June, the snowbird, is returning from Sarasota on Friday, February 26th. She's understandably anxious to see her son as soon as possible. Realistically, Alan and I do not think we have more than 2 or 3 months left. The March 8th MRI will indicate when to begin hospice services. To a great extent, I feel we've waited too long. However, it was Harold's decision not to involve hospice. At this point, I think he's well aware of his time limit, and more accurately aware than we could ever be. Harold once again has decided against all hospice locations, preferring to stay at home. As anticipated, Harold has obviously become more dependent upon me. Nights are active since Harold has bathroom urgencies about every 2.5 hours. I'm usually awakened by his attempts to get out of bed by himself, and then I help him to the bathroom, pull down his pajama bottoms and his underwear, and get him safely seated. He's fallen twice. Accidents have happened, unusually messy accidents that can take a long time to clean up. I have asked his Beth Israel North doctors about this and have been told that they are probably not treatment, seizure, or tumor related. These their accidents, they have suggested speaking to Harold's psychiatrist, something I plan to do next Tuesday. I also need to address my need of at least 6 continuous hours of sleep per night. My REM sleep cycles have been totally confused, especially in the last 2 weeks. But the worst thing that could happen to Harold at this point would be for me to fall apart. How fortunate am I to have loved my gentle bear for almost 15 years. We have been extraordinarily blessed with a multitude of kind, loving, generous, and supportive friends and family. Harold worries that he'll be leaving me alone, but I've assured him that is not going to be possible. I joke with him that with all the many friends he's introduced into my life, he should worry more about my needing to be alone and not being able to get the chance. Harold's final days will be mercifully pain-free. He's slowly slipping and continues to do so. I am comforted to know how many people hold him in their generous and loving hearts. With much love, always, JLH. And that concludes this podcast. Please check in next week for episode 25, March and April 1999. The increased amount of loving support and kindness we found ourselves receiving became an amazing joy to both Harold and me. The approaching inevitability never had an adverse effect on that aspect of our journey. As always, thank you for your time and interest. Until next week, then, be kind, do good, be happy, and love one another, remembering to coexist with tolerance while embracing similarities and respecting differences.